How about Savannah? How are your friends here responding to it? Because Savannah's part of this story too.
Yes, thank you for asking that. Savannah's a big part of this story. In fact, the book doesn't start in Savannah, but the story begins in Savannah and ends in Savannah. And I think Savannians are going to see themselves in this book a lot. I remember when Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil came out, a lot of our friends in Savannah were like, well, we know who that is. We know who that is. But I think in this book, I think Savannians will go, oh, I know that place. I've been there. I remember that. And I think because the word Cleveland is in the title, sometimes people feel it's just a book about Cleveland. And it's really a book about our journey from Savannah, our life in Cleveland, our journey back to Savannah. And it's really a book for all cities. And Savannah, talk about cities that have thought about reinventing themselves for a long, long time and have done it. I'm teaching at a university now, Savannah College of Art and Design, which has helped the city rethink itself and not to overlook the historic Savannah historic community, which has really restored this city, and thinking very shortly we'll be getting ready to welcome 500,000 or 700,000 people will be coming into town for St. Patrick's Day parade, and so I think it's a book for all cities, but definitely Savannians will see themselves in this story.
I do agree with that. I think that every reader who's ever moved away from home to a new place, and tried to make that their home, and either succeeded or failed, will understand your story here. So, good luck. How about reading another chapter?
Yeah,
a little bit about Savannah. Then.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe this will be the last reading. I'm not reading full chapters or anything.
Not trying to push you.
No. I think this would be really good, and I think sometimes people, and some of our Savannah friends, when they read this, they're probably going to think, we didn't know you were having such a hard time leaving. We would have twisted your arm and got you to stay. But we really did need to go, at least for that time period. But I want to read something from some of the Savannah sections. And this is a book that's focused a little bit around Conrad Aiken, who's one of my favorite poets and a very historic figure here in Savannah. And anyway, I just kind of put it in that context. If you hear me mentioning Conrad Aiken, the whole chapter is got some of that going on, but this little section I know will mention him. From out of nowhere, I was slugged in the gut by a big globby fist of buyer's remorse. I felt sick. I had one of those panicked talking heads moments. My God, what have I done? Grief lodged itself somewhere between the lump in my throat and lower intestine. Flipping back through the mover's guide in my mind, I didn't recall seeing anything on the checklist about the emotional distress that the move would bring. Was it there? Did I miss it? Did I intentionally overlook it in my joyful expectation about the move from Savannah to Cleveland? Apparently, up until that moment, I'd just been tricking myself into believing that I was ready to go. Let Cleveland be the journey, not the destination, I'd sung to Beth months earlier when I convinced her that we should pack up and leave behind our 8 years in Savannah. A new city, a new church, being just a little bit closer to our Canadian family and friends, and an opportunity to end my strange sense of homelessness by joining with others in the rebirth of a great American city was in order, I rationalized inwardly. It had all sounded as promising as a coastal sunrise on a cool autumn morning, or for northerners, a blanket of fresh fallen December snow just waiting to be disturbed, snow angels to be brushed in, snow forts to be erected. Unfortunately, the day of our departure, I experienced quite the opposite. Everything we were leaving behind finally made itself known. As we motored away from our summer rental on Tybee for the very last time, my heart was a grief-soaked sponge. Every mile brought with it another memory too cherished to be released, yet too large and too tender to be held for longer than a moment. The sugar shack and trade winds on Tybee Island, where my daughter scooped ice cream for beachgoers each summer, and when she was old enough to drive herself, became the unofficial recycler-in-chief by hauling all the recyclables and a family of brown widow spiders to the blue box in our home on Wilmington Island. George's of Tybee, the lovely restaurant where my son earned tips from women smitten by his young Fabio Lanzani long blonde hair and good looks while he nervously plucked out classical and flamenco guitar music on Thursday and Saturday nights. As we zipped across the causeway, I inhaled one last full and cleansing breath of the nutrient-rich aroma wafting from the marshes and brackish tidal creeks. I reminisced about the wondrous places where we kayaked and only my daughter courageously swam, the mud-packed trails where we hiked and biked, the beach where we swam and got stung by jellyfish, and I unwittingly stood on the back of what quite easily could have been a giant horseshoe crab and shouted, "Look at me, I'm standing on a rock." I was awash in a high tide of Savannah memories as we buzzed down the island's expressway and through the city toward the Talmadge Memorial Bridge, which would lift us up and over Conrad Aiken's Savannah River into South Carolina and north from there. The closer we got to the bridge, our final exit from Savannah, the more my heart ached for the truly remarkable and grace-filled people we were leaving behind. The incredible members and friends of the Montgomery Presbyterian Church, where I learned to love and be loved by some of the most authentic, albeit quirky, and endearing bunch of Christians anywhere. My awesome friends and colleagues from the amazing Savannah College of Art and Design, where I taught over 1,000 undergraduate and graduate students from all 50 states and more than 80 countries, each of them bringing something incredibly personal and unique to my classes. "Just keep driving," Beth ordered me. She had to. I'd been caught by an incredible force from an invisible electromagnetic pulse binding me to Savannah. In my mind, I was now circling the streets of the city while negotiating the possibility of a last-minute change in plans. My foot was easing off the gas and about to make a dive for the brake. "We've made our decision. Our plans are fixed," Beth urged me forward. "Let's keep going." Like the biblical character Lot warning his wife not to look back, Beth held her ground against my haggling lest I turn into a pillar of salt. "We could tell our congregation we were wrong." I began the negotiations. "We made a mistake. Maybe they would take us back. I could call the college. I'm sure they'd give me my teaching job back." I was panicking, not to mention whining. "We could rent an apartment downtown Savannah, take the money from the sale of our house, and just live off of it for a while." Grief counselors would say that I was bargaining. And call it what you want. I wouldn't have cared. With my far-flung last-minute Hail Mary proposals, I was desperate to find a way to undo our decision to move. Cosmos Mariner be damned. Destination Savannah. It was too late, though. The mighty Talmadge Bridge from downtown heaved us up and over the Savannah River as greater ocean-going cargo ships than Conrad Aiken could have ever imagined passed beneath us and then dropped us down to the other side, where the causeway quickly brought us into South Carolina. For the last time, I caught a glimpse of the hostess city shrinking in my rear-view mirror. Through eyes moist with tears, my vision blurred. My stomach sank. A big cotton ball lump formed in my throat. Even if I could speak, there was really nothing left to say. The negotiations had come to a close. The gavel had hammered down a stop to my bidding. For the duration of the 2-day drive to Cleveland, Beth and I remained in silence. Two sturdy but grieving souls whisked down the highway at 70 miles an hour, our faces set toward the new place that awaited us. the place that held the promise of home. It's clear to me now, to go and die with our new city, we would first have to die to our old one. For Savannah, the song had ended. To paraphrase the great composer, Mr. Irving Berlin, how quickly we would learn to cherish the melody that lingered on.
Thank you. I enjoy the fact that you were never afraid to talk about your emotions.
A little bit coming through there, right?